Time for Ask the Mayor on KWBE on this somewhat chilly Thursday, although Mayor Bob Morgan yesterday was pretty nice. I didn't get out and enjoy it. I missed it. But,
I did get out.
Saw a few people walking late in the day, but it was kind of dropped off early evening. But tell you what, when it gets up there, you got to take them while you can get them because we're back down today into the upper 20s. So.
Well, it was a different, let's just say that yesterday was a lot better day walking the dog than this morning.
Yes.
This morning was a little brisk.
Little frost out there, yeah.
Yes, there was.
Down to 12 or something.
And I don't think we're going to get out of the freezing numbers today.
No, maybe the weekend's looking pretty good, so we'll look forward to that. So.
Yeah.
And, well, you're past the reorganization meeting for the city council, the new body, although some past members still on it, set for the new term. Mike McLean was re-elected as council president, and it's onward with 2025 here eventually.
Yes, that's always one of those meetings that you don't do it very often, so you have to kind of organize yourself. And thanks to Erin Sadoff, our clerk, she did a good job of outlining, keeping me in line, and that's good because I need that sometimes. So yeah, we're off and running. Tim Fralin and Rich Kerr has served the city well, and we'll probably continue to do so, hopefully. And then we've added Dana Heido and Alex Eckhoff to the council. So in a lot of respects, those changes that were made were probably good for a mix. Alex brings probably a good young perspective, and Dana brings a perspective with all the things that she's involved with in the community, including Main Street. So, we're excited to see what the next 2 years bring.
Going to stick with kind of the same seating chart? I know I moved around a little bit, but how do you determine that? Or you just say, hey, you're going to be here, you're going to be there?
Great question, because we actually had a meeting yesterday. There'll be a few little changes. Yeah. And some of it is just basically moving the council members around, and you get to know the other council members, and also making sure that we put somebody who's not been on the council before maybe in a spot by somebody who has, to build a little bit more of I don't want to say mentorship, but kind of that first couple of month, procedural questions that they would have.
Yeah. Okay.
So you'll see a few changes. There's always got to be change.
There's always new people on it, and there's a bit of a learning curve, just kind of figuring out what your role is, what the role of the city staff and administration is, and sometimes those lines can be a little blurred, but it's something to learn.
There is. It is a learning curve. I will admit there's a lot of things that you kind of learn as you go, and they're good experiences. I think at the end of my term, I'll have a lot of information in my head that I never thought I would have.
You're going into your last 2 years of the term. You ever think of, hey, I really want to get this thing done or this thing done within these next 2 years, and do I have the time to see those things happen?
Well, I think, quite honestly, for me, it's what I've said before. It's the planning stage to put things in the best spot we can, not for the next 2 years, but for the next 20, 30, or 40 years. And so as far as seeing some things done, in a perfect world, it'd be nice to have dumpsters down and the reroute done and some more changes that need to be made to ordinances. But quite honestly, we need to do this one step at a time and do it right. And so I probably won't see some of those big projects completed in the next 2 years, but we certainly will have a very good roadmap, and we'll probably be started down the road on those. And so, I think the finishing product will come under another administration, and I feel very good about the path, at least, that we're on.
Okay. One of the big things, probably the big thing you dealt with on Monday night during this reorganization meeting after the new body was seated was a revenue bond issue of up to $16 million for a new landfill south of Beatrice. Didn't realize you're only, months away from the current facility sort of running out of space without doing something really drastic there. But it's lasted quite a while. It has lasted quite a while.
It was a decision that we had to make probably maybe 4 years ago. We knew that we were going to run out of space, and you have two options. You can either build a transfer station and pay somebody to haul it off, probably to Milford, which is a bigger landfill, or you can build your own landfill. And I know it was quite a discussion because I was on the council at that time, which would be better. And we studied both very, very long and hard, and I think it was probably unanimous as far as the council at that time, is that we wanted to make sure that we controlled our own destiny and go ahead and move forward because we had the land for a new landfill. And I still think that's the right decision. Mm-hmm. And as I look at landfills, it's more than digging a hole. I mean, we've talked a little bit about how complicated they are to build, and that's why you have up to $16 million cost to get it going. But also, there's not a lot of landfills. And so, it does take a sizable amount of garbage to be profitable for a landfill. But we sit in a position where we can actually bring in garbage from, the city, the county, and a couple of other communities that will bring their garbage to us. So it does provide a revenue stream that will pay for the bonds. Mm-hmm. And then we have our own facility. We don't have to worry about transfer station increases, because with a transfer station, you put it in, you crunch it down, you got to have a truck driver, they got to take it to, Milford, they got to drive it back. There's a lot of labor involved, and with a landfill, I think there's going to be 7 cells. We're set up for another 60 or 70 years with getting rid of garbage in a very environmentally safe manner. Mm.
I look back to when, with the current landfill, where you kind of developed that area of cells.
Yep.
Then you made policy changes like got rid of garbage baling, went to compacting because that was kind of a better way to do things. Just the amount of work involved in that to extend the life of that current landfill was quite a bit.
It was, and we did everything we could to maximize that site because you don't want
got your money's worth.
We got our money's worth. The piggyback that was put in between the two cells was kind of the last gasp that we had, and again, we'll be spending some money on that side, closing that facility. Mm-hmm. And I know that over the years we built up what's called a post-closure fund, mm-hmm. because it will be monitored for environmental concerns for 30 years. Mm-hmm. So there's kind of a big process to close it and a big process to build and open the next one.
In the meeting Monday night when you met with the financial consultant from Piper Sandler who's working on this with you, it was said, of course, these are revenue bonds. They're backed by the revenue produced by the facility.
Correct.
But then as sort of a backstop, you pledge general taxation too. The thought being that's only if needed, as I understand. Can you kind of go into that a little bit?
Yes, I sure can. The last time that we backed bonds was the fire station. I mean, it is paid by sales tax, so it's a revenue generation to pay for the fire station. We knew that we were going to be able to generate enough tax. But as you look at rating for bonds, what the companies that sell the bonds are really asking, if something drastically happened, how are you going to make sure you meet your financial obligation? Mm-hmm. And so all that this is nothing more than saying, you know what, if something really bad would happen and the revenue slide off, then you have a guarantee from the city and the county to, pay those. But we've got some really sharp people. When you look at our city administrator and the head of our financial department, they pencil all this out and know where we're going. And I think one of the hardest parts to understand about the landfill is landfill is BASWA, which is a joint agency. And it is not associated with Mars, which is the garbage company. The garbage company that was run by the city for basically the revenue they generate are not part of BASWA. As a matter of fact, when Mars goes to the landfill, they are paying a landfill fee for each truckload to BASWA. And so that's where some of the revenue comes from. Mm-hmm. Now, ultimately, we all pay that on our bills, of course.
Is that where the confusion comes from, that the bill includes both BASWA and Mars charges, do you think?
I think it does. I think it's hard to wrap your hands around that when the garbage truck pulls up in front of your place, that you're paying that bill and it's not broken down, and you don't think about the fact that company, whether it was Mars or whether it was the other the Beatrice Sanitation, they're still paying for their landfill fees. And so there are separate entities. And I think that's hard to somewhat wrap your hands around.
Yeah. The landfill fee itself, which, and we were talking about this before the program, I think it's $4.50, but I don't want to say
Right,
for sure.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
But how often do you need to or have adjusted that over the years? Because some of that, it would seem to depend on how many new customers you pick up, too,
Correct.
what the volume
Correct.
of business you get. But do you foresee other adjustments for that coming? Because time to time you do raise hauling fees, too, just because, your costs go up.
Right.
Or that's
Right.
just the way it is.
Well, yeah, I think ultimately when you start a new landfill, and it's backed by bonds, you have two things you need to consider. Number one, where you're going to get more customers. And number two, are you going to have to raise your rates a little bit? And so I think that's a conversation that BASWA is going to have on the landfill side, because I believe in the past it's been almost like, every other year there was a fee raised. And I don't believe we've raised that fee for quite some time. So, of course, it'll be one of those things we have to look at and probably raise.
I understand you're wanting to hold a work session to sort of go over how the whole structure works, is sort of which would be kind of a nice review since you have new members on the
Well,
council,
not only that we have new members, but I think it also will help explain the difference between BASWA, which is the landfill, and it will also help what Mars does. And I think it will clear up a little bit about some of the concerns that people have had about Mars going out into some other communities. We've had some conversations at City Council when we've had new contracts. For the last one was Crab Orchard. But I think it will also show that those increase in business from Mars will drive more garbage to the landfill, and Mars will pay the landfill. So it will help ultimately keep a price down for all of us as far as the raise from the landfill side or BASWA. And so that's kind of a tough thing to kind of wrap your hands around. And so we're going to have a work session that shows, the divisive lines about BASWA, which is its own business, and Mars, which is its own business. And also where some of the other garbage, I think, is it Seneca? I think Seneca, Kansas.
I think so.
They come up and use our landfill. And it's no different than if we had to do a transfer station and haul it to Milford. So BASWA's being is providing a great service for this southeast corner.
We were talking before the program about where landfills are at. You mentioned Milford. I was thinking one was near David City.
Yeah, I think
and
so.
And then the one in Kansas, Topeka area in there, and then there's one over in Iowa near Shenandoah and Clarinda, but that's quite some distance away. So
it is.
There's kind of a limited number of choices of facilities.
Right. And, the Lincoln, Omaha area have their own. Yeah. So, they're not taking other people's garbage because they got enough to handle on their own. So, yeah, it's one of those side businesses or how it's set up. And I think we just got to remember that, BASWA, which runs this landfill, is different and not associated with Mars, but Mars has to pay fees to BASWA, which helps them keep going.
One more thing before you take a break here on you're taking bids, kind of a two-part bid thing now. First on the earthwork or the main work for the new landfill, but also then the building and the scale house, things like that. What is any indication about how much interest there's been so far? Or
I think there'll be, of course, more business interest in the buildings. Building a landfill, there's not a lot of companies that do that.
It's kind of a specialized thing.
It is a specialized area. The person that has built the piggyback and a lot of our other other cells in our present landfill, that company, the owner decided to retire. And so now I believe as far as the landfill, we put it out for bid. If I'm not mistaken, we maybe only got one bid. And, once the bid comes in, we take a look at what the bid is. And, if it's higher than what we expected, we'll go back to them and see if there's some things that we can change to lower it. When you see a bond issuance up to $16 million, I know that from the administrative side of the city and for BASWA, we'll work really hard to make sure that it's under that by $1 million or $2 million.
So when do you think the bulldozers will start moving on the
Well, if a contract is approved on the bid on the 16th, then depends on the weather.
Yeah.
If the weather's decent, I'm sure they would probably like to get started sooner or later. If the snow sets in, we'll see what it looks like in March or April.
Okay. Back with more on Ask the Mayor with Mayor Bob Morgan in just a moment. Back on Ask the Mayor with Mayor Bob Morgan today. And I was kind of foggy on how this all worked. I was trying to remember, but the rural community recovery program grant that you're going to be using for ADA compliant playground, maybe some other uses. There was a tie with that related to the Kensington at one time. Explain that, if you would.
I'll try to get this right.
I think I had kind of garbage in my head Monday night because I was thinking about this whole BASWA thing. And
there was, as we try to make sure that we keep the Paddock Kensington around, and we are working with Hoppy Development Company, and they're going to buy the building. Mm-hmm. There was a grant that could have certainly helped them to help furnish them, and we got the grant. And then all of a sudden it was tied into COVID money, and they were saying, well, wait a minute,
was that the ARPA funding?
The ARPA,
okay.
So it was related to some ARPA funding.
Okay.
And so, so they basically rewrote the rules, or the federal government rewrote the rules, and so we had to rebid. And we're trying to figure out how do we still help Hoppy, but how do we do it so it's revenue neutral? And so the legislature came up with this rural community recovery program for playgrounds. And so basically they passed that $1 million through to us that way, or $947,000. So we're able to supplement, we're able to kind of help Hoppy, but also help the playgrounds. And we had playgrounds planned already in our budget, so we can use some of that money that was in our budget to help Hoppy, and then the playgrounds still get done.
The playgrounds, are those basically upgrades, or are there new ones planned in areas?
I think there's both.
Okay.
I think that's one of the things that we'll also see down the road is we'll put a little bit of a recreational plan together. There's a couple of them that we know need to be upgraded ADA-wise. I think there's some spots in town that certainly could qualify for new playgrounds, particularly when you think about having 4 elementary schools that are now not there. Elementary schools by default kind of come by to be in a neighborhood playground because the equipment's there. And so we need to look purposefully where maybe some new park equipment needs to go to continue to make sure those areas have access to playgrounds.
Brief comment or reaction on the council's move to adjust an ordinance dealing with what's included in agriculture zones that the city has some control over as far as your zoning jurisdiction area, not in the city, but just outside. What the outcome of that, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I guess quite honestly, just to back up a little bit, we have thousands upon thousands of ordinances. And you really don't, sometimes these changes come up because there is a conflict, and you take a look at the ordinances. The ordinance that we made adjustments to was put together in the early 70s, and I think it had a very narrow view of what agriculture is. And as things have changed and times have changed, there's a lot of businesses that are in the ag sector. And if you look at the Department of Labor, and if you look at even the college coding that I dealt with for 6 years as Vice President of Program Development, you really understand that agriculture is a lot broader than just planting corn. You've got businesses of seed corn, you've got horticulture, you've got turf management. There's a lot of things that fall under agriculture. And so this was really a step to, I would say, bring the ordinance up into the 2024 standard. I know Councilman Fairbanks said this, and I totally agree because we're kind of in that same age bracket. When I was growing up and you were 15 or 16, you mowed the neighbor's yard.
I remember doing that.
Yeah,
made a few bucks,
and it was
not as many as today.
As many as today, but now if you look at lawn mowing services, which falls under agriculture, it is a business that we have several in town, and you know what? They're really good for our community because not only do they spend their time helping make our place look beautiful, but they generate revenue, and they spend that revenue in our community. And so they're a valuable part of not only agriculture, but they're a valuable part of the city of Beatrice.
What about the building that was at issue here as to whether it was storage or an operational thing for a business? Any thoughts on that?
Well, quite honestly, I think it probably could classify as storage. It does not have water. The business address is not run out of there. Certainly equipment is stored there. So I think in the long run, you could make a case that it was storage. And I think that's the one thing that I would like to point out is this change isn't about one person that continually came to the city council. I think it was broader than that said, hey, we need to take a look at what we need to do to move forward in the 21st century.
You dealt with a lot of ordinance changes through that special committee chaired by Gary Barnett. Most of them pretty non-controversial. This one was obviously going to draw some reaction because of the discussions that went on.
It did. And, I will say that, we took our time and made sure we got it right, in my opinion. We did the right thing. I think this lawn service is not the only one that sits in the 2-mile radius. I think in this case, it just happened to be a neighbor that didn't like it there and wanted to see it moved. And, I think changing the ordinance to include a number of things that fall under the agricultural sector is the right way to go as we continue to let people use their property in a way that they really had designed. Now, again, it goes back to, was it storage? Probably. And so this is a broader change for the entire 2-mile radius.
Ordinance adjustments sometimes bring sharp differences. See fireworks.
Exactly.
A little footnote to that one. That took quite a while to get through. That was over several months.
Yeah. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay. Back to wrap up Ask the Mayor in a moment. Back on Ask the Mayor today with Mayor Bob Morgan. Just a couple of minutes left. Maybe touch on a couple of things. I was out walking yesterday and I parked near the new U-Stop, which has been, I think, in place now for a year. And I noticed they did some pouring on that entrance that would connect to US 136. Not completely, but
right.
I guess the old thing about when you get 50 degrees,
that's right.
You go.
You do. I think they're making good progress there. I think that's a good move for the U-Stop, and I think you have a new elementary out there, and you centralized the high school and the elementary. You got a lot of traffic out there, so it's a business that was built in Beatrice that we're very proud to have.
Just west of there, the residential development will go in there. Any update on that? I just see kind of the dirt work and stakes and things like that marked out. But
they're still working on it. I know he's from Lincoln. I know that he's got several other projects that are going. So I think it's one of those things that he is trying to manage all projects at one time, so they'll keep making some progress.
Yeah, maybe weather has a little bit to do with it.
Weather probably has a little bit to do with it.
Getting into the cold season here. Big weekend coming up Saturday night at 5:30 is this will be, I think, the 10th annual Holiday Lighted Parade in Beatrice. And, back when that started, a new event like that, everybody kind of thinks, well, how is this going to come out? Is this going to be good? And lo and behold, you get thousands of people into downtown Beatrice.
And guess what? Saturday's going to be a great day.
Yeah.
Temperature-wise, it's going to be
56.
wonderful. I've had the privilege of judging, being one of the judges for that parade for a couple of years now, and I can remember some days that I was sure hoping I had a lot of hot chocolate because it was really, really cold. And, this time I think there'll be a lot of people and great floats. I'm glad for all the people that participate and the chamber for putting it on, and looking forward to watching the parade and judging again.
Won't get the ambiance of snowflakes, but warm weather is not a bad trade-off.
I was going to say, you've got to remember it's only, it's Pearl Arbor Day, actually, December 7th.
Yep.
So we have time for snow, getting a little closer to Christmas.
Yeah, it can snow a few days later. That'll be okay.
Yeah, that's right.
But other activities going on around that time, too. Community players putting on some presentations. I know there's other things that are going around during all of Saturday, too.
Right. So. There is. There's an event on Friday night, I know, for the Hospital Foundation. You've got the community players that are going to put on, as usual, a wonderful production. I think it's this weekend and next weekend. And I think they've got hot chocolate or something they're going to serve possibly at this one for people that maybe went to the parade. So, it's time to get out and enjoy what I think is an upgrade to the community for Christmas. I
Yeah.
mean, if you look at it, look at the beautiful lights that between Main Street and,
More
Vision.
trees lit up at Charles Park there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're becoming quite the little Christmas town, and I think that's wonderful.
Okay. Mayor Bob Morgan, thanks very much.
Thank you.